implementing and administrating ADFS. ADFS means Active Directory Federation Services. It is Identity Federation. It is also called Identity Federation. Now what it do here? It allows the identification, authentication and authorization across organizational and platform boundaries, and requires a federated trust relationship between two organizations or entities, and allows the organizations to retain control over who can access their resources, and allow the organizations to retain the control of their user and group accounts. Basically what happens when we have a collaboration with a different organization or different business, so what we do trust. We configure trust relationship between the different organization. Like for example, we are doing just for the time period, we are doing the collaboration with the other organization. So we do the trust relationship, we configure the trust relationship. But the trust relationship will do what? It will allow everything. When we do the one-way trust or two-way trust, when we do the two-way trust, it by default allows everything for the users from the other organizations. Now sometime what happens, we don't want to allow everyone everything. We want to allow some specific users only for some specific resources. Then what we can do, if we do the trust, that means we are allowing everything from our organization to someone. But suppose there is an 2-3 different vendors, like small vendors, they are having only 2-3 users. They just want to access the resources of our organization remotely. So what we should do, without doing the trust, we can do what? We can allow the federation. We can use the identity federation thing, and it will do what? With this, we can allow the identifications of the user. We can create the user account for them, and they can use the resources of our organization through the web application. The resources which we allow only to those particular users or organizations. So basically it do what? We do create a web application here, and it do what? It allows the resources through the claim base. Now what happens? It is here what it is called a claim based identity and claim based authentication. Now what is this? It is claim provides the information about the user. So that means the user who wants to access the resources, he will provide the information that I am the user account, my name is this, my identity means my email address or maybe my UPN, this is my information. It is providing the information as a claim, and it says, the user says that I am this user, and the user's identity provider supplies the information that the application provider accepts. So application provider accepts the information and provides the identity provider supplies the information. Like identity provider is our identity federation server that will identify the user and provide the information to the application server or application provider to provide the application which that user wants. So security token receives token services. Here identity provider provide the identity, that means it authenticate the user and authorize the user, and then application security token will go to the application server, and the application provider will do what? It will, based on the authentication or identity of the user, it will provide the application. So identity provider is our federation server which will identify the users. Overview of web services. Now it is web services we use for giving the single sign-on access for the federation services. These web services comprise a standard set of specification used to build the application and service. And web services typically transmit data as XML and use the SOAP to define the XML message format, and use the WSDL to define the valid SOAP messages, and UDDI to describe available web services. This SAML is a standard for exchanging the identity claims. So by using the application, we do what? We provide a single sign-on interface. So for that we actually have to create the application ourselves. This is not available from the Microsoft site. So we have to configure the application for ourselves that will provide the single sign-on. That application we will use with these languages so that we can use this with the federation services. So these languages we need. So now what is ADFS? ADFS is the Microsoft Identity Federation product that can use claim-based authentication. ADFS has the following features. It provides the single sign-on SSO for web-based applications. So whatever the applications we want to provide, we can give the single sign-on web-based application. That means once user have to sign only one time, and then it can use all the resources or applications through that web page. And that web application we have to design ourselves. Interoperability with the web services on multiple platforms and support for many clients such as web browsers, mobile devices and applications. Extensibility to support customized claims from third-party applications also, and the delegation of account management to the user organizations. Now what is new in ADFS in Windows Server 2016? New ADFS features introduced in Windows Server 2012. It was integration with the Windows Server 2012 operating system, and it is integration with the dynamic access control. Windows PowerShell commandlet for administrating ADFS was also available. Then new features in ADFS Server 2016. It support for any directory that is LDAP version 3 compliant, new factors of authentication and improvement in ADFS management, and also conditional access. So these are the new feature we have in 2016. It was introduced in 2012, these new features, and in 2016 we have these new features. Then how the ADFS enables a single sign-on in a single organization. Like you have a single organization and you are just giving the access to the external clients. External clients want to access the single sign-on, want to access the resources or application of our organizations through the federation services. So we have the external user here, external client, which is sitting on the internet environment. Now we have what? We have web server here. We have the federation services proxy server also, and then we have federation server here. And then we have the ADDS domain controller and the whole domain. These are all under our local premises. Now this web server provides the single sign-on web application for accessing the resources. Now when the user try to access, so first it will access the web server, and when the web server it access the web server, it will provide the single sign-on single sign-on page to authenticate the user. That means user has to provide the username and password. Now that will be sent to the federation services proxy server. Now it is also called web application proxy. Now it is located under the parameter network. Parameter network, that means a secure network where we keep all the external servers that we want to access from the internet environment. We put this extra layer of security so that we can secure our internal servers. So this is our internal federation server, main server, but this is the proxy for the federation server. So client does not have to connect from the outside. The client does not have to connect directly the federation server. They have to access the parameter server, proxy server, and if it is authenticating the server, the authentication, the validate, the users, the network, then it will forward it to the federation server. So client will forward to the federation service proxy server, and that server will redirect the request to the federation server, and the federation server will try to authenticate the user through the domain controller. When the domain controller allow the user, authenticate the user, then it will send the response to the proxy federation proxy server, and the response goes to the client. And then client will access through this web server. It can access all the resources what is available, or all the application which is available or given configured for that external client. Then how the ADFS enables the single sign-on in a business-to-business federation. Now where we have business-to-business federation, that means we have one business, this Terry Research, and the other we can say the adotum.com. Adotum corporation. So instead of configuring the trust relationship, we just configure the federation trust here. Now internal client computer from this configuration, like from try research, it wants to use the application from the Adotum corporation. So what it will do, it will send a request to the web server again. Then web server, we have designed the application, we have configured the web application here, identity application. Then it sends a response and it asks the username and password for the user account. Then as a user will provide the identity, and the identity goes to the resources federation server of the adotum.com. Now from here it will get the response and authentication response. It will send it to the account federation server for the organization, and then it will send the response to the Active Directory domain services to validate the user. When it is validated, then what? It gets the response that it is validated. Then it can access the federation resources server, and from here it will get the response that you are validated to the web server application, and through the web server application it can access the resources given to that user. Important thing is here that we have to design this web application accordingly. Now ADFS requirements and plannings. First, ADFS components. So we have these components like federation server first, which is the server is doing the federation, trust federation, then federation server proxy, and also we can say web application proxy, which we put into the parameter network so that we can make a secure layer for our federation internal server. Then claims, that means the identity for the users. Claims rules, that means how the claims can be accepted. Attribute stores, where the attributes are there, and claim provider, that means the server which is providing the claims like Active Directory servers. Then relaying party claims provider trust, then relaying party trust certificate endpoint. So these certificate endpoint, we need the certificate also, and also the relaying party claims provider trust, that is the proxy, that is the server, the web application server which is providing the claim. Now ADFS requirements. What are the requirements to configure the ADFS? First, a successful ADFS deployment includes the following critical infrastructure. First, we need the TCP IP network connectivity. We need the Active Directory domain services configured. Then we need the attribute stores, and then we need the DNS also. So attribute stores is also in the Active Directory domain services. So basically we need the Active Directory domain services with the full network. Then we need the certificates. So FACI certificates and the PKI certificate requirements. So first we need the certificates to used by the ADFS. Without certificate, it is not going to be configured and it will not work. So for configuring the ADFS, we need the certificates, and we need the certificate services communication certificate, we need the token signing certificate, we need the token decrypting certificate. So these all certificates we require. Basically the web server certificates is sufficient to do all these things. So if we have a web server certificate, then it can do all these things. Then when choosing the certificate, ensure that the service communication certificate is trusted by all federation partners and clients. And the certificate which we are using, it must be trusted with all the clients and all the partners of the federation trust. So if you are using the self-signed certificate, then we have to export the certificate to everyone, every clients and federation partners. Or if we are using the certification authority server in a domain, so we don't have to manually send the certificate trust to everyone. It will be automatically through the Active Directory, it will be automatically distributed to everyone. Then federation server roles. A claims provider federation server which do the authentication for the internal users. It issues the signed tokens containing the user claims. Then a relaying party federation server that consumes the token from the claims provider and issues the token for application access. And a federation service proxy that gets get deployed in a parameter network and provide a layer of security enhancement for internal federation servers, so that internal users can directly access through the relaying party federation server and claim provider, and the external user have to come through the federation service proxy. It will provide the additional layer. Now, planning an ADFS deployment for online services. Online services like Azure or online Microsoft Exchange or online 360. Okay. So internal computer again send the report to access the web application server. Then from here it will get the page that where it is going to be authenticated, and through that it will send the request to the Microsoft Online Service Federation server that we have configured in online, that is Exchange Online. This is online server configured on the federation. Then it will send the response to the client. Then it will get the access to the account federation, and it will authenticate through the Active Directory domain services, and then it will get the response, and then it gets the access of the federation resources. Now again, this is configured on online. We have configured it on the Azure server. We have configured this federation services, and it will get the access of application. Now, deploying the single sign-on integration with the Microsoft Online Services. To configure the SSO for integration with online services, you must prepare your environment for SSO, that is single sign-on. Then deploy the federation services, deploy the directory synchronization with the Azure Active Directory, and then verify the single sign-on. Planning a high available ADFS deployment. High available, that means we want that federation server must be available every time. So when planning the high availability of your ADFS environment for federated authentication, you should consider these following categories. Like, you can use the federation server farm. That means we can create more than one federation servers. We can create multiple federation servers. Then we can use the network load balancing cluster to manage the server availability or load balancing, or also we can use the configuration database. Capacity planning, that means use the following when planning for the capacity of your federation servers. So capacity planning spreadsheet requirements is the percentage of total user expected to send the authentication request to ADFS, and during the peak use period, a length of time the peak use period is expected to last, the total number of users that will require the single sign-on access. Estimated table is like fewer than 1000 need 2 federation servers or 2 proxy servers. If we have 1000 or less than 1000, then 1000 to 15,000 user must be, it can be also handled by the 2 federation servers with the 2 proxy. Through 15 to 16,000, 3 to 5 federation servers required, and more than 60,000, at least more than 5 federation servers with 3 proxy servers are required to handle all these single sign-on requests. Now let's see how we can configure these federation services in our environment. This is our domain controller, and we have the ADDS services installed. We have DNS also installed. Now what we need here first, I'm going to install the federation services on server 2. This is server 1, and this is our domain controller. So I'm not going to install it here under the domain controller. Now what we need first is the certificate requirement. So first I'm going to install the certificate services, or we can use the self-signed certificate also, but I'm going to use the certification authority here. So first I'm going to install the certificate services so that we can use this certificate to configure the federation services. This is the requirement for configuring the configuring the federation services, is that you need first a proper certificate configured. So first I will do what? I will install the certification authority here so that we can provide certification for different for the ADFS servers and also ADFS clients. Okay, so I will install this certification authority first. It will take a little time. It is installed. Now let's configure the certification authority server here. We will configure this, And what else we need? We need to configure the DNS server also. So after this I will configure the DNS server also. Everything is okay, and let's make a simple name for our certificate server. And configure. Okay, it is configuring. Now we need what? We need the DNS server also. So I'm going to configure the DNS. Under the DNS, what we need is this server 2 we are going to configure as a ADFS server. So this server's IP is 192.168.0.201. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create one more record here for our ADS server, and that will be a different name for us, different name for our ADFS server. So I'm going to create ADFS as a name for our ADFS server. The full name will be adfs.sci.com, and I will give the same IP address as our server 2. Then one more record I have to create. It is called enterprise registration. Enterprise registration for the same ADFS server. This is for the device registration. To register the device, if you are using the multiple devices like mobile devices or laptops or different devices, so this will be help for the device registration to the ADFS server. So device registration will be done by this name. It is going to configure with this name. So this name also must be resolved by the same server, ADFS server IP, and this is we have added the new name for the ADFS server. So this is the same IP, and actual server name is this server, server 2. Now this is configured, the DNS is configured, and the certificate authority server is also configured. Now what I will do, I will create the certificate for federation services. Under the template, certificate templates, we have multiple templates, and this web server template is actually sufficient for our ADFS server. But what I am going to do, I am going to configure some properties of this web server. So we are not able to configure these properties of this web server template. So what I will do, I will duplicate, I will copy the template and create the new template. So this is the web server template. I will right click here and I will say duplicate the template. Compatibility is okay. Under the general, it is using this name, so I will change the name. This is Ssl Certificate. Request handling, I want to allow the private key to be exported. Then cryptography, no need to change. Under the security, I am going to create this certificate for the domain computers. So I will add here computers. We have to select the object type computers, and then here we will add the domain computers. This is the domain computers group, which is the all the computers of the domain are member of this group. So I will allow this group to enroll or auto enroll this certificate. So I added the domain computers group and I allowed this to enroll or auto enroll. Extensions we don't need. This is what we don't need. Subject name. Now this is important. Subject name will be supplied in the request. That means when anyone try to request this certificate, so it will provide the information while it is requesting. Otherwise we can add the request from here, like built from the Active Directory information. We can use DNS name, we want email address, username or whatever. But because this is for the machine account, so what I will do, I will use supply in the request, because the request, when we give the request, we will provide the information about the subject name. That is important, and this is why I am using this custom template I create. Okay, so this is what I have created. Now I will add this into the certificate template. Right click, new template, certificate template to issue. And from these templates I will select this SSL certificate. Now the certificate is available to issue. So the server which is we are going to configure as a ADFS server, that server will got this certificate. Then the server, the proxy server, the web application server, which is ADFS web application server, will also get the same certificate. So this is the certificate which we are going to give to the ADFS server and web application server. Now one more thing we required is the service account. We need a one service account when we configure the Active Directory, this federation server. So we need a service account also. Service account, group managed service account, or we can say managed service account. So what we'll do here, for creating the service account or group managed service account, first what we need is the KDS root key to create. So I will create the add KDS root key. So first we have to add the KDS root key, otherwise we are not able to create the group managed service account. Effective time, it is going to be available for next 10 hours, after next 10 hours. So I am changing the date. I am using this option get date and adding the hours -10. So from the current time I am removing the 10 hours from it, because it is going to take 10 hours before it is going to be available for creating the user account, creating the service account. It will always available after 10 hours, but after doing this we are removing from the current time, we are removing the 10 hours from it. So the ticket will be, the key will be available right now after this command. So we can create the service account, but still it will take time. It will take time to distribute with the other servers. But we can create the account right now. So this is the key we have created. Now we can create the new account for the services, AD service account. We can mention the proper name for it. We can mention the name for which is meaningful. I will say Federation Service Account, FSA. Then DNS host name. Now here we will mention the name of the ADFS server which we have also created under DNS, that is adfs.site.com. Then principal name also we have to mention, and that will be http/ again adfs.site.com. So this is the service principal name for the group managed service account. One more thing, principal to allow to delegate, this will be the ADFS server again. Oops, sorry. Here we have to give the real name of the machine, that is server 2. Okay, so we have created the service account also. The service account name is FSL. Now we have created the certificate, we have added the name into the DNS server. We have added the records for the name in the DNS server. We have created the certificate. We have also added the service account. Now we are ready to install and configure the ADFS server. So for that we'll go to server 2, the server which we want to configure as a ADFS server. Okay, so this is server 2 and this is member server, and now we are going to use this server as a federation server. First we have to make sure the certificate is available here, and also we will make the web server available here, so that we will configure the certificate for the web server. Now in server 2016 we don't need to have a web server for the federation services, but for getting the certificate I'm just wanted to have this. So I'm installing this. It actually now don't require the web services. Okay, it will take a little time. Okay, this one is installed. So let's get the certificate first. So I will go to MMC and add certificate, and for the computer account. Now from the certificate, from the personal, we'll go for all tasks and request the new certificate. Go for the Active Directory enrollment policy, and it will show us the certificate which we have created, Ssl certificate. So we have the computer certificate and the certificate which we have configured, Ssl certificate. So we will select this, but here it is saying that more information is required to enroll the certificate. More information because we have selected to provide the information at the time of request. The user information like the name. So we have to select this to provide the information. Now under this, first for the subject name we'll go to common name and we'll add the name of the ADFS server, adfs.site.com. This name must be resolved, and that is why we have added the entry into the DNS. Then for the alternate name, we have to add the DNS name here for our ADFS server. And one more alternate DNS name we have to add, that is for the device registration. That is, we have added enterprise registration.site.com. So we have added the alternate name as a adfs.site.com and enterprise registration.site.com. Both are the same server, that is server 2, and this is the ADFS server. This is going to be the ADFS server. And okay, I'll go for this. So the information which required, we have provided the information for the certificate, and now we can enroll the certificate. And this certificate is going to be used for our ADFS server. Okay, so the certificate is enrolled. We finished this. I will close this one, and we have installed the web services here, IIS. So I will use the certificate which we have just right now enrolled. So I will go for the website and bindings, and I will add HTTPS binding and use this certificate for the binding. So our site is now using the HTTPS and using the SSL certificate here. Now we are ready to install the ADFS role. So we'll go to manage here and we'll go to install the ADFS role here. Next, role-based installation. This is the server, and this is what the Active Directory Federation services, which provide the single sign-on capabilities. So we'll go on to select this. Next, no additional feature I required. Next, this is the information about the ADFS, what it do and what is to be done before installing it. This computer must be joined to the computer before you can successfully install. And the web application proxy role service in the remote access server role functions as the Federation service proxy and cannot be installed on the same computer as the Federation services. So if we need to install, if you want to install the web application proxy, then that must be a separate server than this, because that will be located into the parameter network DMZ zone. So that must be a separate server. So I'll say okay, yes, this is not that, and I will say yes, restart when it is done, and install. After installation, we will configure this, and after configuring, it needs reboot. It will not go reboot automatically. We have to reboot manually. So it will say, after configuration, it will say that you will have to reboot. Reboot is required. It does not reboot automatically. So we have installed this. Now we want to configure the Federation services. So we can configure it from here, or we can configure it from here. So it opens this wizard. Now here, before you begin, it says an Active Directory domain administrator account you need. Then you need the publicly trusted certificate for SSL server authentication. So we have the certificate available and we are logged in as an administrator account, so we can do configure it. Now first it is saying select the option below, that is create the first Federation server in a Federation farm, or add the Federation server to a Federation server farm. So we can configure one server, or we can configure multiple servers as a farm. So if we want to configure a server farm, so first we need to create the first server, then the second servers we create will use the add Federation server to the Federation farm option. So this is our first server. So we are going to use this option, create a first Federation server here. Also it is saying configuring the single sign-on to Office 365, exit this wizard and use the Azure Active Directory Connect first. So we are not configuring it, we are configuring it our local premises. So we'll go on with the first option. Next. Now it is asking for the user account, the authenticated account who is having the permission to configure this Federation services. It must be the enterprise admin. So I say yes, this is I'm logged in as a current administrator account, domain administrator account. So it has all the permissions, so I can go on with it. Next. Now here it is asking you to select the SSL certificate. So we have added the certificate, otherwise we can import it. If you don't have it, so you can import it from the file, or we have already imported it, we have already added the certificate. So in a drop down you can see the certificate which we have added. We can view the certificate, and based on the certificate we have added the Federation service name. Remember the name we have added, the DNS, the common name and the alternate name we have added here. So it is taking that name from here. Then we can add our organization information here. Whatever our organization is, this name will be displayed when someone try to access the ADFS server. Now next, you have to select the service account. Now if you have not generated the ADS key, KDS key, so you will get the information warning here that there is no KDS key is available. So if it is available, then you will not see any error here or any warning here. So we have generated the key, and then we have also created the account. Now we have two options here: create a group managed service account. That means if we have not created the account, we have just created only if we have only created the KDS root key and we have not created the account, so we can select here to create the account. But this we can do only when we have generated the root key, KDS root key. So here we can name the account here, and it will create the account for us. Or if we have already created the service account, that which we have done, so we can select this use an existing account here, and then select to browse the account which we have created, Federation Service Account FSA, check name, this is right, and OK. So the account we have already created here. Or we can select to create the account right now, but you can create the account only when you have generated the KDS root key. After this we'll go next. Now here it is saying what will be the database, what database you want to use. If you are having a big infrastructure, then you should use the SQL database, and for the small kind of network or small kind of informations, we can go with the Windows internal database. So here we can go with the internal database, otherwise we have to configure the SQL server for it. And if you have SQL server configured, then you have to select the name for the SQL server, and then instance of the database you have to select here. For that you have to create the instance of database in the SQL server. But right now I'll go with the internal database. So after that, now it is reviewing your selections. This is what we have selected here. Then we'll go next and we'll check. Now it has checked the prerequisites. It says everything is okay. Only one warning it is giving here. It is saying that the root key for the group managed service account was created on this date and time, and if you have more than one domain controllers in your Active Directory forest, the key may not yet have replicated to all domain controllers, and that is why it took 10 hours to do that. But if you have multiple domain controllers, so to avoid the service startup problems, wait for 10 hours to ensure the key has replicated to all the domain controllers. So after the 10 hours it will be fully okay, but we can still use it. We have only one domain controller, so we can still use this. Then other prerequisites are checked and okay, so we can go on to configure this. Again it is showing that warning that related to the KDS key that says wait for 10 hours to ensure the key has replicated to all DC. So we can still go with it. One more thing it is saying here, the machine restart is required to complete the ADFS services. So as I said, after configuration we have to restart it manually. It will not automatically reboot. One more information it is saying here, this is again it is an information that the Ssl certificate subject alternative name do not support host name. Actually we have added the enterprise registration. We should also have added this cert auth adfs.sci.com also, but we have not added this, but it's okay. It is going to use the same name, adfs.sci.com. So it is initializing and it is configuring it. It will take a little time. So now it is done. It is configured successfully with these three information about the root key, and to restart the server it is need to be restarted. Then one more for the SSL name, but it is saying that binding the port on this host name. So it is hosting. It is adding this host name for it. So it works. So what we need is to reboot the system. So we have completed the installation. We do what? We will reboot it. It is rebooted. So the server is restarted and configured. Now we have the ADFS configured here, and now what? We can manage the ADFS from this ADFS management. This is the management console for it. So this is the management console where we can manage the ADFS. We have different services here. Attribute store, which is Active Directory, where all the attributes are there. We have authentication methods. These are the authentication methods, internal, external. Then we have certificates. These are the certificates which we have added. Claim descriptions. These are the claims like user informations, email address, given name, name, UPN, common name, group, surname. These all can be the user's claim description. That means the name, information about the users. Device registration also there, like for the registering of the device. The allow users to register devices with the Active Directory so they can use the ADFS on those particular devices. This Active Directory forest is not configured device registration for this ADFS form. Right now it is not configured. Now if we want to configure it, then you can select here to configure the device registration. For this you must provide the account with the enterprise administrator right to configure the Active Directory device registration. So you have to log in as a enterprise administrator so that you can configure this. It says all that thing. Then we have endpoints here. Now device registration is configured and enabled. Then we have the endpoints here. These are the endpoints for the ADFS services. This is the scope of description. Then web application proxy server. Now we have not configured the web application proxy server. The proxy server located under the perimeter router, and this proxy server we configure on routing and remote access server. For that we install the routing and remote access server and then we configure it. Now access control policies. These are the access control policies which says the permit everyone to intranet access, and other policies are there. Relaying party trust, it is not created but we are going to create it. Then claim provided trust is Active Directory. Application group, where we can see the applications which is allowing. We can add the application for this. Right now we have not applications. We don't have applications here. Now after this we have to configure the web application, the application which provide the relaying party trust. That will provide the relaying party trust. That means when someone try to access the ADFS server, they will come for the they will log in through the web application, and the web application will do what? It will provide the relaying party trust. It will send the trust to the ADFS server for authentication, for identification. So for that we configure the web application. Now web application we have to define, we have to design ourselves, or we can use what? We can use a sample application. We have a sample application which we can use. That sample application is only some like it will give you the login interface and all that. It does not have anything, but for a real environment we have to configure the application, design the application for us. Now what I will do, I will go to server 3 and I will configure the web application for that, for this federation services. Now this is server 3, this is our member server, and now this server is going to be our application server, which is claim provider server, which is going to do a relaying party trust. Now for this what we need is the IIS services installed here with the certificate and SSL, and also we need the Windows Identity Foundation installed here. So we'll go to manage first and add those roles. So first I need the web server, web IIS server here. From the roles and from the features, what I need is Windows Identity Foundation here. Windows Identity Foundation 3.5. And this one supports the .NET 3.5 or .NET 4.5 ASP.NET. So we'll go on to next here, and under the role services of web server we'll go to applications, application development, and here we will select the ASP. The sample application which we are going to use is actually support this ASP.NET. So we select this ASP.NET here. ASP.NET 3.5 or 5.4.6. Now the ASP.NET which we selected here, it is not available right now here under the server. For that we have to specify the alternate path here. Alternate path, that means the path from the CD DVD. So this is the DVD we have, installation media under the D drive. So we have to specify the path from here, and the path we can specify by using this specify an alternate source path here. Without this it is not going to install this ASP.NET, it will give error. So it says that you have to specify the path of your installation media. Under that you have sources directory, under the sources directory you have SXX directory. So we have this under D drive, under that we have sources, and under the sources we have SXS. So this is the alternate path I have to give here. Remember, this is our installation DVD. So installation DVD is under the D drive, under that we have sources folder, and under the sources folder we have SXS folder. So I give that, and now I can install it. It will take little time, but it will install it. Now this one is installed here, so we'll close this. Let's get the certificate first. So I will go to MMC and I will add the certificate console here for the local computer, and I will request for the certificate. This certificate we are going to use for the web application here, which we are going to configure here. And without the certificate it will not be secured and it will not be accepted. So I need the SSL certificate and need to provide the additional information. This time this is server 3. So we are going to give the name according to alternate name. Also I will give server 3. And enroll the certificate. Okay, finish. So certificate is there now and we can use the certificate. So we'll go on to IIS server and we will bind our site to that certificate. Go on to bind the site. With our SSL certificate. Now our IIS is configured. What we do here, we want to check our ADFS server is working or not. So for that we should check the metadata of our ADFS server. So we'll open this Internet Explorer here. We'll put HTTPS and our federation server name adfs.site.com / the connection point, that is service point, that is federation metadata 2007-06. This is the metadata service point URL. So we have to give it as it is. Then federation metadata.xml file. Now it shows the metadata information here, and this means what? The ADFS server is working properly. Everything is working properly. We can see the login page also. we can see https://adfs.sci.com/adfs/ls, and this will be the login page for the ADFS. Right now it is not configured here. We are going directly, we are trying to connect. So it is saying an error occurred, contact your administrator for more information. It shows the name here, the name which we have configured. So this will be the login page here. So this is important, this is the metadata, and this is important for us. Now what? We are going to install the Identity Foundation. This Identity Foundation SDK 4.0 we have downloaded from the internet. Now this will do what? It will give the utility to configure this Identity Foundation, and then the application, and also give us the sample application for it. So we can use that sample application also, and we can configure the Identity Foundation also. So I will install this first here. It's a simple installation. And it is installed now. You can see the readme if you like this is the readme. You can see the readme. It says the system requirement, major features, and all that. If you like, then you can read it properly what you want. Or after installation, where it goes into C drive, program files, and here under the Windows Identity Foundation SDK. So it gives here the utility, this Fed utility to do the federation, to configure the federation, and also it gives you the sample application. So what I will do, I will use this sample application. So from samples, quick starts, web application, passive redirect claim based application, and I will copy all these files here. And I will go to default root directory for our website, our web server, inetpub, and under that I will go to the default root directory, and here I will install this, or I will directly put it into inetpub. So under the inetpub, I will create new directory here. For our sample application web app, I will use the name, and under that I will paste the files which I have copied from there. Now in the file, I have to change something from here. So I will open this default ASPX CS file, in the notepad. And first thing what I change here, that I will claim, I will comment out this section for each claim. So first I will comment out like 2 slashes given here. Like this. The whole section we have to comment out, and then I will save this. Then for this web conf, I will open this also again in the notepad. And under this I will remove this Windows identity, Microsoft identity model. This tag I will remove from here, from the beginning to ending. The whole tag I will remove, because when we configure this, it is going to create the new tag, so it will not support 2 tags at the same time. So it is going to create the new tag for it. So I will remove this one and save it. So these 2 things we have done here. And now what? This is going to be our web application, and this is the web application directory. So I will go to IIS and I will configure the IIS server for this. So first I will right click on this. I will select the application pool first, and under the default pool we'll go to basic settings first, and under the basic settings this is supporting the version 4.0.3, so I will reduce this to 2 because of the web application. Then again for the default pool I will go for advanced settings, and under the advanced settings we have to change the load user profile to false to true, so that it is going to load the profile through the IIS. So I will go OK. Now this application pool we are going to use with the application which the application directory we are created. So for that what we will do, right click on the website, default website, and select add application. Here we will give the application alias, that will be web app, and the default pool it is going to use default application pool. And for the physical path we will access that directory which we have created under the inetpub, this web app directory. So this is what we have selected. We can also select for the authentication. We can check it's okay. Enable preload, okay. So we have configured the web application, and now we will go to this the C drive, this program file Windows Identity Foundation SDK, and we will run this federation utility now. So we will run this utility to configure it. Now here it is asking first select the web.conf file. So we will browse and select that which we have created under the C drive inetpub, and under the web app directory we have this web.conf file. Then here we have to mention the URL which users try to access this web application. So the URL is https:// and the name of the server is server3.sci.com/ the application name is web app This is the alias for the web application. Then we configure next. Now here we have to select these foundation metadata. So we can use no, or we can use the existing. So we have the existing information, and which is browsed here under the browser. This is the one. So we will copy this path here and we will paste it here. So the whole path, we can see the example here also. So the metadata XML file we have pasted here, the path, and then we'll go next. It is checking the file from there, from the federation server. Now it has detected that STS. Now what? We want to disable the certificate chain validation, or you want to enable it. However, it depends on the application. The sample application does not support this, so I disable this, and it also does not support the encryption, so I will not use it. No encryption. This will be the claims. It can support all these claims. So this is what we have selected. We can also select or schedule the task to perform daily. So we can set the task and it will check the XML, the metadata XML file every time after on this time. So if you want, then you can set the schedule also, and then you can finish it. So you have successfully configured the web application for your application. Now here it is configured. Now we have to go to the federation server to configure the relaying party trust. That means this server as a relaying party trust. So now we'll go to federation server. Now this is our federation server, and here we will configure the relaying party trust. That is that web server we have configured. So here what we will do, we will select the relaying party trust, then add the relaying party trust, that is claim aware or non-claim aware. So the application which we are using is the claim aware, so we select claim aware and then start. Now here we have to mention the URL for the application server, https server3.sci.com/ the web application is web app, and then we'll go next. Now this will be the display name. You can change any, or you can leave it as it is. You can add notes also. Next it says the choose an access control policy, how you want to allow the access. So you can permit everyone, you can go on to permit everyone and require MFA, whatever you want. I'll go with the permit everyone, and then here it is saying I do not want to configure the access control policy at this time, and no user will be permitted access for this application. So if you select this, so it will not configure the policy, and then till you have configured any policy, no one will is going to be access this application. So I'm going for the permit everyone. I will go next. So this is what the federation location, you can see the federation location. It is saying here under the side server 3, under the web app, it has created the directory federation metadata. Under that XML file is there. This is for the monitoring. It is the file there. The other information you can check here, the identifier, the encryption, signature. Encryption we have not used. Accepted claims we have not configured. Endpoints and all that. So this is what we have configured. I will go next. Now it says configure the claim assurance policy for this application. So we can configure, we have to configure the assurance policy also. So it is selected. So when we close finish, it will open the properties of this, and it will open the property, and it will allow us to configure the assurance policy. So I will close this. As soon as I close it, it opens the property. It is in the background. This is the property for this. And here we have to configure the rule for the assurance policy. So we'll go on to select add rules. Now we can add the rule different ways here. We can send the LDAP attributes as a claim, that means the user's LDAP attributes. We can send the group membership as a claim. We can transform an incoming claim into the claim. We can pass through the filter and as an incoming claim, or we can send the claim using the custom rule. So I'm going to use the custom rule here. Next. And what I want to do, I want to allow everyone. So I will say this is for the all claims. And I will configure the custom rule here. Custom rule will be like C colon, and this is for all. Issue claim is equal to C semicolon. So this is what I have did. I have created the custom rule for everyone. That means all the claims, any claim I want to accept. Now I will say finish and then OK. So this is what we have configured the ADFS server with the application proxy, and the application proxy, that means the claim provider, which is our server 3. So if any user wants to access the federation services, then the user will access this web application on server 3, server3.site.com at web app, and that it will be redirected to this federation servers. It will be redirected as a claim. When the user provides the username and password, it will be redirected to this federation server for authentication. When it is authenticated, then it will get the applications from this applications group. We don't have any application available, so if you have application, then we can add it here, and that applications will be available through that federation trust. Okay, after configuring all these ADFS, now here we are in Windows 10 machine, and now we'll check how we can connect that ADFS server. So if the client wants to connect, so client open the browser, and then it will put the address of the web application. So our web application server is server3.sci.com, and we have configured the application of web app. So client will connect this web application. Through that, it will send the request, claim our request to the ADFS server. So we can see here it is showing you the web page, which is this SciTech Corporation, which we have given to the organization when we configured. Now users of the Active Directory will log in here by using the username and password. So this is Sci user 1 we have, and I will give the password for that user, and then I will sign in. Now when I sign in, I can see the information about the user, but right now this is just a sample application, so it is not having anything here. So if we have any applications or trust application which we want to provide the users, then we will configure the application according to this web application, so that it will get all these application interfaces from here. So this is what the ADFS server. So we have configured the ADFS server, and we have configured the web application for the ADFS server to be claim aware, and it is sending the claim request trust to it is actually service claim provider which is providing the claim to the ADFS server. So we are connecting the server, the web application server, and through the web application server it is sending the request to the ADFS server, and ADFS server is identifying these claims like this username information and then providing the resources. Right now we don't have any resources, we have a sample application, but we can configure the application. It depends on the application what we configure on this web application server. So this is our ADFS server, and this is how we can configure the ADFS server.